News. Today's talk.
Your Premier. I'm Wayne Nelson, your host and moderator. The show being broadcast on 770 CHQR right here in Calgary and in Edmonton on 630 CHED. Every Saturday morning at this time, I'll be speaking with Premier Jason Kenney about some of the issues of the day. But this is really your opportunity to ask questions of the Premier, voice your concerns, or raise issues that you feel need to be addressed. Whatever's on your mind, you can speak with the Premier one-on-one. Just remember to keep it short and respectful, and please be patient. We get a lot of calls and texts. You may be on hold for several minutes. And please keep those text messages short as well. There are a lot of them. And quite frankly, I don't have time to read a novel. So keep them short, and I'll try to get to as many as I can. Premier Kenney wants to hear from you. You can call or text 403-974-8255 in Calgary and Edmonton, 780-496-0063, and across the province, 1-800-563-7770. Premier Kenney, welcome to the show.
Great to be back, Wayne.
Now, last week, we kicked off our show with a discussion on electricity rates. Any update on when Albertans can expect to see those rate rebates?
Yeah, we've just passed the legislation, and so we're working with electricity companies to get that on people's bills, hopefully next month. There's, I think, 40-some of these retailers. They have to pass it on through the people's bill, and they'll do that automatically.
All right. Now, speaking of rates, auto insurance rates have been in the news lately. First, in a government report issued about a couple of weeks ago, and then in another study. NDP leader Rachel Notley says rates have risen substantially since the NDP cap on premiums expired in 2019. And yesterday, she reiterated her call for a one-year rate freeze on premiums. Now, I've got two or three related questions on this subject.
Sure.
First, Notley has already started the unofficial election campaign by asking for a rate cap until the next election. At least that's an indication to me that the NDP expects to regain power. Just last night, I received an automated phone survey call from the NDP outlining their platform in brief and asking if I would support them in the next election. And that, coupled with an NDP pledge to revitalize downtown Calgary if elected, says to me, it's on. The unofficial election campaign for the NDP, at least, is underway. What about the UCP? Your government has recently announced a number of programs, many with increased funding announcements. So does that mean it's also election-style campaigning for the UCP?
No, absolutely not. I mean, look, political parties are going to reach out and communicate with people and release policies. Nothing extraordinary about that, Wayne. But the next election will be the third Monday of May 2023. We put that in law so that the government can't play around with it to their advantage. So we've kept our commitment, part of our big democratic reform package, to establish very clearly when the next election date is, and it's more than a year from now. So yeah, people can expect to hear from political parties between now and then. That's what happens in a democracy. But I think most people are just focused on getting on with their lives post-COVID, and I hope starting to experience the benefits of a booming economy.
All right. Now, getting back to this auto insurance rates. At a news conference last week, you raised the specter of public auto insurance in Alberta if the NDP was elected, and you were quoted as referring to public auto insurance as a kind of Soviet style. Do you regret your choice of words?
No, I meant by that very specifically that in a Soviet economy, you have no choice. The government chooses for you. And that's what happens when you have a government monopoly in the provision of a service. And so we've tried that in economic history. It does not work well. Albertans, Alberta, part of our belief is in competition, choice, freedom, free markets, because we understand that in the long run, competition does better than government monopolies at being responsive to people. It doesn't always mean prices are going to be what we want them to be. But if we start getting back into micromanaging that market, here's what will happen. Just like last time, a bunch of market players will just leave Alberta. There will be less choice. It'll be harder to get comprehensive insurance. What happened 4 4 and 5 years ago was it was hard to, some people had to pay 100% of their premiums up front. So, you know, we have to look at this intelligently. The problem has been a huge growth in the personal injury payouts. And so that's why we brought in legislation last year that's starting to have an impact by limiting some of those soft tissue awards through personal injury cases. Ralph Klein did exactly this back about 20-some years ago. The personal injuries lawyers did their job. This is not criticism. They did what they're supposed to do. They found a way around that. And so we brought in some additional restrictions on what those awards can be. That has limited the payout side. And so now we're starting to see premiums stabilize and come down.
And in January, of course, we saw the direct compensation part taking effect for motorists as well. At the end of the year, when you look back at the impact of Bill 41, because this whole thing falls under that umbrella, what will your response be? Will it have been enough to help bring down costs?
I hope so. I mean, I do know that 7 auto insurance companies have made applications to reduce rates. AMA has reduced them, I think, by 7.4%. And that should be a market trend because people need to shop around. And if this is how the market works. If one company like AMA reduces rates by 7.4% and others don't follow, they're going to lose their market share. So that's the kind of market dynamic we want to see, as opposed to people having absolutely no choice. If you think that the BC solution BC has got the right solution. Just talk to some friends over there. People are never happy with the single BC auto insurance model either.
All right. Let's go to the phones now, and we'll start off with Ron. He's got a question on climate change. Go ahead, Ron. You're on with Premier Kenny.
Yeah. Buenos dias, senor.
Buenos
I
dias.
was in Havana. I need to do a little preamble. I was in Havana just before COVID, and I had quite a nostalgic experience seeing all those 1950s cars driving around. I'd forgotten how black the exhaust and how smelly it was when they were started up. So actually, we've come a long way with car emissions. That got me thinking about all the emphasis on buying expensive taxpayer-subsidized electric vehicles and how much environmental damage their manufacturing actually includes. Fossil fuel mining, machinery, new roads, a massive new electrical grid. So my question is, are there any post-secondary institutions left in Alberta who would have the courage to fund research on a cost-benefit analysis of maintaining and buying used cars instead of subsidizing new electrical vehicles? I believe research grants are only being approved for one side of the climate change debate. And finally, go Flames, go, in Sutter we trust.
Right. You got a lot there, Ron. So.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Muchas gracias de la cuestión, Ron. Thank you very much for the question. I hope you had a good trip. On the first point, look, Alberta doesn't subsidize any of that, and I don't believe in those subsidies. In fact, you know, when we scrapped the NDP carbon tax after our election in the spring of 2019, we took away all the what I think are dumb subsidy programs that was funding. And you know what the feds are really doing with their big subsidies for electric vehicles is subsidizing choices for pretty wealthy people. You have to be pretty high up on the income spectrum to be able to go out there and afford a Tesla. And that is a upward distribution of income from working people who can't afford it to pretty well off people who can. I just don't think that makes any sense. But you've made some good points there.
All right. We're going to take a quick break here. I'm Wayne Nelson. I'll be back with Premier Jason Kenney and more of your calls and texts when we return on Your Province, Your Premier.
Let's see how well Desjardins insurance agent Sarah knows her client Maya. 10 seconds on the clock. Sarah, Maya's house has 3
bedrooms.
She drives a
2021 crossover.
Her husband wanted
a lifted truck with strobe light undercarriage.
As her agent, you said to him,
Maya said no.
So instead he
bought a jet boat.
Switch to a Desjardins insurance agent who gets to know you and what you really need. Desjardins Insurance. Home, auto, life. Exclusions and conditions apply.
As as the business world continues to evolve, small business owners are rising to the challenge.
The Stubborn Baker specializes in custom desserts for every occasion. My love of baking and decorating started after I had my spinal cord injury. I kind of like to look at stubbornness as the thing that I lean on. People find me through my website, and that's how I get their orders. I love what I do because I feel like I get to play a role in spreading a little bit of happiness in people's lives.
Presented by Shaw Business. We connect you because you connect us.
The following is paid for by Pro-Life Alberta Political Association, 855-398-8486, and does not necessarily reflect the views of this station.
Pro-Life Alberta is a group of women and men committed to promoting pro-life public policy, with the belief that all human life deserves protection, especially innocent human life. Pro-Life Alberta is working with your help to build the political pro-life movement in Alberta and to protect the most vulnerable preborn babies and their moms by passing laws protecting them. Visit prolifealberta.com. And let the beat go on.
Lazy Boy Furniture Gallery's biggest sales event of the year, Moonlight Madness, is on now. Everything store-wide has been marked down with huge savings, plus scratch and save even more. An additional 10, 20, 50, up to 100% off your purchase. That's right, your purchase could be free. Don't miss the biggest sales event of the year, Lazy Boy Furniture Gallery's Moonlight Madness sale. Both locations, South Edmonton Common and West End, where every scratch card is a winner.
Spring has sprung at Freedom Mobile with unlimited data plans starting at just $50 a month. Spring on down to Freedom and spring into spring savings with, I cannot read this. Who wrote this? Details at freedommobile.ca. Conditions apply.
It's our YEG.
Enjoy a challenging and fun event while racing through the streets of St. Albert, or join in virtually with the 10th annual Leading Edge Physiotherapy's Run Wild, May 14th and 15th. Register now at runwild.ca. Then celebrate summer with the Together Again Outdoor Concert Series, August 19th through the 21st, featuring Paul Brandt, Burton Cummings, 5440, and more at the racetrack infield. That's our YEG. I'm Sierra Yaschuk.
For details on these and more events, visit 630ched.com.
Professional landscaping, $4,000. Building a fence, $8,000. Damaging a buried utility, $20,000 and up. Click before you dig costs you nothing. Not clicking could cost you everything. Always ask yourself, where's the line before any ground disturbance, and click before you dig at utilitysafety.ca to know what's below. Click before you dig. It's free from Utility Safety Partners.
It's your chance to bend the ear of Alberta's leader. Call now 780-496-0063 to talk to Premier Jason Kenney.
You're listening to Your Province, Your Premier on 630 CHED, Edmonton's News. Today's Talk.
Welcome back. Your Province, Your Premier airs every Saturday morning at this time from 10 until 11 throughout Alberta, here in Calgary on 770 CHQR and in Edmonton on 630 CHED. I'm Wayne Nelson, your host and moderator, and this is your opportunity to voice your concerns, address issues you feel are important, to speak with the Premier one-on-one. In Calgary, the number's 403-974-8255. In Edmonton, 780-496-0063. Across the province, 1-800-563-7770. You can call or text those numbers. We'll go right back to the phones now. Derek is calling in from Edmonton. Actually, Derek, we're going to hit you second. I want to talk to Curtis first. Curtis has a question about LRT. Go ahead, Curtis. You're on with Premier Kenney.
Thank you. Hi, Premier. I'm a big supporter of yours. My question is about LRTs and commuter trains in Alberta. First off, I'd like to say I appreciate the total $159 million in funding to get our transit systems back to where they were pre-COVID. However, Premier, instead of millions of dollars, we need billions of dollars invested into current and future LRT projects, especially to and from our airports. We also need a train from Calgary to Banff and a train connecting Edmonton and Calgary. Does a UCP government acknowledge the power trains and LRTs have in unlocking our cities and economy? And will a UCP government give the significant investment into trains our two major cities so desperately need?
Okay, thanks, Curtis. A well-thought-out question, and clearly you're a train buff. On the question of LRTs, the Alberta government is making very major investments in both the Green Line in Calgary and the West Line expansion in Edmonton. I think between the two, our capital contribution is well over $2.5 billion. Which is critical to having those projects proceed. On the question of Calgary Banff, we have been working with the proponents of the Calgary Banff potential rail service for commuter and passenger rail service. And right now there's another study being done. I know that the Canada Infrastructure Bank is engaged. Like with all of these projects, Curtis, you'll understand that they have to be viable in market terms, and we can't put taxpayers on the hook for a 30 or 40-year operating subsidy if there is not going to be adequate ridership to justify it. But I mean, I like the concept of Calgary to Banff, but the economics have to work. And that applies as well to the proposed Calgary to Edmonton high-speed rail. There is a project called Prairie Link. If you're not familiar, you can look it up online. And Ellis Don, which is a major international construction firm and engineering firm, they are quite advanced in planning for that, and they're not asking for any public subsidies. They're just asking for some regulatory cooperation from us, which we're giving them. So I meet with them fairly frequently, and so we're in favor of all of those projects. The latter two in principle, but we have to at the same time protect the interests of taxpayers when it comes to any potential investments.
All right, as promised, we'll hit Derek in Edmonton. You're on, Derek. Go ahead.
Hello, Premier Kenny. So I wanted to ask you why, when regular everyday citizens are getting fines for multiple breaches of COVID violations, you did not get any kind of a fine or even talked to by authorities about your multiple breaches of COVID violations.
Well, thanks, Derek. I'm not aware of multiple breaches of COVID violations. I certainly tried throughout to respect the rules. I think you're maybe referring to one event we had outside when there was a rule that you could do socializing for up to 10, or is it up to 10 or 15 people outside? We had 6 people for a business dinner and outside. I believe that it was compliant with the rules. Some people said, well, you weren't exactly 2 meters distance between each other. We went out and measured the chairs, and in fact, we were like 1.8 meters distance between each other. So I think we absolutely made an effort to comply with both the letter and the spirit of the rules. I don't think anybody, and not 4.5 million people, were in 100% perfect compliance the whole time. What we asked is people to make an effort, and I certainly have.
All right, text line now. This one from, you don't have a name. Mr. Premier, now we don't have to put on new stickers for our registration renewal on license plates. Are you coming out with white stickers to put on top of the old year numbers to help clean our plates up?
Actually, we've just changed that. So let me get back to you on that. Could you repeat the question?
Well, we don't have to put on new stickers for our registration renewal. Are you coming out with white stickers to put on top of the old year numbers?
I don't know the answer. I'll get back to you.
All right. Go to the phones now, and next up is Justin. Justin calling from Edmonton. Go ahead, Justin.
Hi, Premier. The federal government has lifted our equivalent of Title 42 and has reinstated the loophole in the Safe Third Country Agreement to allow illegal immigrants from America to come here. So what can the provincial government do to make sure that these people won't be a problem?
Yeah, thanks, Justin. That's bad news in my view. It frustrates me because as Minister of Immigration, I was trying to close the loopholes that existed between Canada and U.S. and the Safe Third Country Agreement. Just so people understand, this is an agreement signed actually by the Chrétien government, which says that if somebody coming to a port of entry, a Canadian border crossing from the United States, is making an asylum claim, we refer them back to the United States. You don't get to asylum shop. One of the principles of the United Nations Convention on Refugees is you seek protection in the first country to which you flee. So if you're a Mexican, Central American, you're in, the United States, your legal obligation is to make an asylum claim there, not kind of do an asylum shopping move by coming north of the border. So Chrétien signed an agreement to put those people back into the U.S. system. There were some loopholes that I worked on closing, and what this tells me is that the Chrétien government doesn't really care about, the Trudeau government doesn't really care about the integrity of the system. And my point is this: if we want to maintain a public consensus in favor of generous immigration policy to Canada, then we must maintain the integrity of our borders. If people get the sense that you can sneak in the country through the back door by breaking our laws, that undermines public confidence in the integrity of our immigration system. And that's what's happened in the U.S. It's what's happened in Europe. That's what's led to the backlash against legal immigration. So I think it's a very bad move on the part of the Trudeau government.
Stephen has a question on demerit points.
Yes, I have two questions, if I could, please. First of all, Premier, thank you for the hard work that you've been doing on behalf of Albertans prior to COVID with respect to our oil and battling for Alberta, for the issues of landlocking our oil and strategies. I think with what's gone on with the COVID in the last number of months, hardworking Albertans have had not the time to digest where you were at before COVID hit.
Yeah.
And I really want to thank you for. I hope you can pick up the ball going forward here and get right clear path where you were before, because that truly is the most important issue, or it's right up there, the most important issue. So I almost choked my coffee the other day when I heard that we were importing Russian oil up as far as 2019. That was Mr. Trudeau's comment. The last boat from Russia came in 2019. I never knew we were taking it from Russia in the first place. So we really need to get back on that. And on behalf of Albertans and people that I know, I'd like to thank you for that effort and remind Albertans of the direction you were going before this hit. And good luck with that, sir. Okay. Now,
go ahead, Stephen.
The question I have is, it seems that the insurance companies have a double standard when it comes to demerit points, and I became aware of this when I unfortunately had a speeding ticket, and when I went to pay my insurance, I realized that the database for the government of Alberta allows demerit points to fall off after 2 years. Now, I have a good driving record. I have one ticket, three demerit points. So it fell off the system with the Alberta government, but it seems that the insurance companies have lobbied and got their way with policies that will allow them to continue charging for demerit points for another year. So if you fall off, if you say this today, you had a ticket 2 years today, that ticket and those demerits would fall off. So, and then you go to get your insurance.
Sure.
And
your question, Stephen? Yeah.
The question is, is it in your understanding, first of all, are you aware of this? And then if checking what I say is true, which it is, would you implement a policy that would make the insurance companies put in the same statutes and regulations as our Alberta government, a Motor Vehicle Act does?
All right, thanks, Stephen. I've got to cut you off.
Okay.
Sorry, Stephen. There was a lot there. There was a lot there. I'm going to have to look into that. I do know that the insurance companies are limited to the demerit points. Of course, disappear off your record after 3 years. They are permitted to mark up your risk premium if you have traffic tickets. Photo radar tickets don't count towards that because they're not sure who the driver is. But I can understand that one way of assessing risk for drivers is the frequency of traffic violations. But let me. I'm going to take a transcript of your question, look into it. On the earlier point, I just wanted to point out, Stephen, that we didn't down tools during COVID. In fact, we sat more as a legislature than any in Canada, far more than the federal parliament. Because we kept our nose to the grindstone, and a lot of people didn't notice that. We were all completely focused on COVID, especially the media. But that's why now, 3 years into this term, we've completed implementation of nearly 90% of our 375 platform commitments. And I would argue that a lot of those policies built the foundation of the economic recovery and diversification we're seeing now.
All right, text message now from Steve in Edmonton. Mr. Kenny, why are you not following Premier Ford's lead in abolishing vehicle license fees?
Well, he's done that as a cost of living policy, which I can understand. What he has not done is to eliminate the Ontario fuel tax. We've gone much bigger and deeper than Ontario has in providing for relief for people facing inflation and energy costs. So we have suspended the collection of Alberta's fuel tax. That's 13 cents a litre. We're also providing a $6.50 cap on natural gas prices, and that kicks in now. The prices are over $6.50, and the $150 rebate on electricity. So altogether, our package of cost of living support is in the range of about $2 billion on an annual basis, which is way, way more than Ontario is providing, even if you include their car registration holiday.
Okay, back to the phones. Diane has a question on renting prices.
Yeah, thank you very much, Premier, for taking these calls and doing this weekly. In the last 2 weeks, major Calgarians in particular, but Albertans, have been on QR's shows complaining about the heavy increase all of a sudden because the policy changed approximately 5 to 7 years ago, where there was a cap on how much a landlord or a rental company could increase their rental fees. And all of a sudden, it's no longer there. People are getting $800 to $1,000 increase on a 2-bedroom or 3-bedroom 1,000-square-foot home, and this is ridiculous. I mean, I couldn't believe it until I looked it up when QR first had the story on, showing that the policy had changed and landlords could charge whatever they want. In the last 5 years, major companies, because I did some research, major companies have bought the properties here in Calgary in particular, who are outside the province, such as Vancouver and Toronto, mostly BC, and they have huge amounts of property that they're renting here, and all of a sudden they have hit so many people that QR callers are telling people they're going to be living on the street in 2 months.
All right, good question,
Could
Diane.
you put that back on the cap?
Well, thanks, Diane. And Diane, I hear the concern for sure, because housing affordability is always an issue. And what we're going through now is an economic boom. More and more people are coming to Alberta, and our real estate market fell well behind the Canadian market. Frankly, that was, I think, a good thing, because over the past several years, housing prices have more than doubled in Ontario and BC, but they still stayed relatively flat in Alberta because of the downturn. Now we're recovering, and we're seeing that in a big way in the real estate market. That's reflected both in home buying, but also in the rental market. So we are going to see some inflation in housing costs here, and we've got to help people address that. We hope at the same time there will be inflation in people's incomes to address the rising cost of living. I'm not aware of Alberta ever having had rent controls in the past. I think your statement implied that there was rent controls that was lifted, not by this government. I don't think we've had rent controls in the past. They were not introduced by the NDP either. There is a requirement under the Residential Tenancies Act that landlords can only increase rents once every year, and they have to give people adequate notice. It establishes a range of rights and responsibilities for landlords and tenants in Alberta. So let me look more into this issue, but I do think that what we're seeing now is, frankly, the real estate market in Alberta is starting to catch up a little bit with the rest of the country because of economic and population growth here, and unfortunately that's going to mean for people in the rental market higher prices.
Text message now with your just stated understanding of Albertans' love of competition, free choice, free markets, and freedom in general, and your promise of red tape reduction. Why are you not removing the Calgary Metropolitan Regional Board that gives power to the City of Calgary to veto any of its 8 mandated rural members' initiatives?
Well, that is an issue that Minister of Municipal Affairs Rick McIver has been working at together with the municipalities. Recently, he released the Wheatland County from the control, if you will, or the aegis of the Calgary Regional Municipal Board. The reality is that the vast majority of municipalities in that area support the board and the planning process that it went through. I know that there are a couple of rural ones who don't, and believe me, I'm very sympathetic to their concerns about being limited in development and growth. I would very much hope that the Calgary board could operate more like the one in Edmonton. And when I visit with the municipalities that surround Edmonton, they're generally pretty happy. They don't feel like they get strong-armed by the big city of Edmonton. So we clearly need a better working relationship here. I think there is a need for some kind of shared planning process, but it shouldn't block unreasonably development, and so Rick McIver's working away at trying to find a solution to that.
All right. Sarah is calling from Edmonton, and this is on the current school curriculum plan. Hot topic. Go ahead, Sarah, you're on the air.
Hi. So, my question is about the curriculum. I am curious as to why the UCP keeps saying that the old curriculum was filled with NDP propaganda when it was the PC party that actually wrote that curriculum. The only thing the NDP had changed was the math curriculum because the students were scoring so low in Alberta, but every other thing they were scoring high in. And even your own first committee that you put together to review that curriculum said that there was no NDP propaganda. So I'm just curious as to why this lie keeps getting said.
All right, before you answer, Mr. Premier, a related text message on that. Why does this government continue to try and push a flawed curriculum that has little to no support? What will you do in the future to assure Albertans that you actually listen to their concerns? Okay, so a couple of questions there, one from Sarah from the phone line and one from a related text message.
Sure, Sarah, I think there's a misunderstanding because my critique of the proposed NDP curriculum was not about a curriculum that is being taught in the schools now, although I think it is insufficient in many areas. But rather what they were proposing to do, they went through a process over the term of government for a new K-6 curriculum. They released scope documents, which are basically high-level plans for quite dramatic changes to the curriculum. And when you hear my critique about their planned curriculum, it's referring to what they intended to implement. We got a mandate to put the pause button on that, go back and more broadly and openly consult with people to come up with a revised curriculum that would be modernized and would adopt tried, true, and tested teaching methods to help improve outcomes, particularly for math and reading proficiency, as well in this area of social studies to ensure broad civic and cultural literacy. So that's what we are working on now. I think there is a consensus in Alberta politics across the spectrum that we do need to update and modernize the curriculum. On that, we in the NDP agree. We just disagree on how exactly to do it. On the second question, the text question, we're actually involved, I think, in the most exhaustive consultation process there's ever been. And in fact, people had concerns about too much change too quickly. Teachers and school boards were concerned that adopting entirely new curricula in each subject from K-6 would just be too much for teachers to absorb and be able to implement. And that's why we have gone at a much slower rate. We've decided in next year only to implement updates in the language arts and math plus wellness curricula and leave the other subjects for the next year. And in fact, now we're only going through K-3. So we're going at a much slower pace and taking on board we've already made significant changes from the original draft that was released about 14 months ago. And yet more changes will be incorporated based on the constructive feedback that we receive.
All right.
But can I just say, it's not true to say nobody supports this. Professor Vladimir Trotsky, a brilliant professor of mathematics at the University of Alberta, he and others have endorsed the strong new math curriculum here. Professor Georgiou at the University of Alberta, one of the world's leading and an award-winning expert on literacy in the education system, helped to write this curriculum and has endorsed these changes, and many other experts. This has been trialed in the Fort Vermilion School District, and they found a massive gain in reading and math outcomes amongst the elementary students for whom it was trialed. So I'd ask people not just to listen to one or two special interest groups, but actually go online and read it yourself and get some independent views.
Back to the phones. We'll switch topics. Coal mines in the Crow's Nest Pass. Carmen, you're on the air with Premier Kenny. Carmen, are you there? Go ahead.
Hi there.
Thank you, Premier Kenney, for taking my question. As you know, metallurgical coal is needed to produce the steel for the green infrastructure, including electric vehicles, wind turbines, and solar panels. We can't go green without the need for met coal, and we can develop our resources responsibly, and we need it for our economics, especially here in the Crow's Nest Pass, Alberta, and Canada. And I'm wondering why this isn't, why we're listening to the other side and you're not listening to the people that want coal.
Well, thank you very much, Carmen. I certainly am listening. In fact, normally what I get criticized for is listening too much to people who support responsible coal development. The reality is, you're bang on, Carmen, that the world needs metallurgical coal, that steel-making coal. You can't operate a modern economy here or anywhere else without steel. And so, in fact, there's a growing global demand for metallurgical coal, which is provided in part by some Alberta met coal mines, including up around the Grand Cache area. But there's certainly in BC, I think they have upwards of 12 metallurgical coal mines in BC. And so, I've consistently defended the need for responsible coal development, partly for those reasons, and the history of responsible coal mining in Alberta. Now, having said that, the recent application down in the Crow's Nest Pass area for restarting a dormant mine went through a joint federal-provincial environmental review panel. That is an independent arm's-length quasi-judicial tribunal. We cannot politically interfere in that. They came back and said that the environmental concerns outweigh the prospective economic benefits. So that is the regulatory process. And we've also just reconfirmed that we won't be accepting applications for either thermal or met coal projects in areas that have particularly sensitive ecosystems, like around some of the headwaters of the eastern slopes. But we do support responsible resource development in principle. That's the difference between us and the NDP that want to completely shut down all coal mining in Alberta, even with a 140-year history, and even though there's a huge global need for this product.
All right. Text line, this is, I believe it's Darcy from Edmonton. When are they going to pave the Peerless Lake Highway 686? We've only been waiting 35 years.
I'll have to get back to Darcy on that. I must confess I don't have the provincial capital plan in front of me for every single road, but we are investing a lot. I think about $2 billion a year in highway maintenance and repair. We're maintaining near record levels of investment in that. It's never enough. I'll tell you this, Alberta in the 70s, when we were rolling in big oil money back in those days, paved a lot, pretty much all of our secondary roads, unlike other provinces. And so we've got a bigger network. We have more paved road per capita than any Canadian province. So we have a bigger network to maintain, and it's always a challenge to keep up. But thanks for flagging that one.
All right. This is a question that comes from our CHED newsroom. And we'll do this question before we hit a break. Now, CHED received some information yesterday about a party delegate who claims he has already voted in the leadership review for yourself. He received a second ballot, and there's at least a couple of reports that came in to CHED and to Global about UCP members receiving multiple ballots in the leadership review. Now, they say this is causing them to lose faith in the process. How are you responding?
Well, I'm not aware of those particular complaints, but I would refer them to the party. I would say that whenever I've seen the administration of a mail ballot, there's always a small number of issues like this that occur. Sometimes somebody will not get a ballot. They'll call and ask for a replacement ballot, or maybe they have they may not be aware of it. They bought a new membership and they have an old membership under a slightly different name or a different address. But what I can tell you is once a ballot arrives, and they're an outer envelope, there is their proof of ID. It's a photocopy of, let's say, their driver's license. Then that person is indicated as having voted, and they can't vote a second time. So if they happen to somehow, let's say they're operating, they got a replacement ballot, then that replacement ballot comes in, it does not count. It wouldn't be put in a ballot box.
Right.
So, but for more details, I would go to the party.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, we received an email from Dave Prisco, who is the Director of Communications with the UCP, and he said that exact scenario was posted on the website, www.unitedconservative.ca/ SGM-2022. Now, basically, he says there's a verification process, just like you explained, and there are scrutineers, and he said we err on the side of making sure everyone gets their ballot on time, since the verification process prevents somebody from voting.
Yeah, and all I can tell you is I've been out and about around the province, and I haven't heard of this from anybody else. So I imagine, like in the past, this is a very rare that something like this would happen, and they have a process to screen against it.
All right. We're going to take a break. I'm Wayne Nelson with Premier Jason Kenney. We'll be back to wrap things up in our final segment on Your Province, Your Premier.
Thinking about starting insulin? You might be. Tresiba is the #1 prescribed long-acting insulin by endocrinologists in Canada. Its flexible dosing means you can take once daily Tresiba at whatever time works best for you, with at least 8 hours between doses, even right after you test your morning blood sugar. Talk to your doctor today to see if Tresiba is right for you, and visit nowready.ca.
When it comes to your team, the news you can't live without comes live from the Crystal Glass Sports Desk, only on 630 CHED.
Although Prime Minister Trudeau revoked the Emergencies Act, for many it was a worrying example of the power the government can quickly exercise to access our bank accounts. Here's Erin from Macmillan Estate Planning.
Many families have asked us what they can do to protect their wealth were a similar situation to occur in the future. We recommend using tools like trusts, which are armed with numerous layers of wealth protection.
Register for Macmillan Estate Planning's upcoming webinar on Wednesday, May 4th at macmillanestate.com or call 1-833-266-6464.
BDC is all for entrepreneurs, all for builders, go-getters, and problem solvers, all for driving the economy, fostering innovation, and creating value beyond profit, all for building more inclusive and sustainable businesses, all for sharing our expertise and resources and helping you grow your business every step of the way, all for entrepreneurs. BDC, financing, advising, smarts.
Legacy Heating and Cooling is the #1 heating and cooling company for people who want heating and cooling, because you'll save a bundle by bundling. Then you can use hot, cold, hot, cold. Come on, thermostat, do what you're told. Turn up the heat, turn up the cold till the vents start pushing out tornadoes. Bundle my furnace with some AC. Gonna get a deal from Legacy! Oh yeah, save a bundle when you bundle your new furnace and AC from Legacy today. Plus no payments and no interest for 1 year. That's how you build your legacy. Legacy Heating and Cooling.
Ain't it beautiful? The inventory